Hey, what?
Hey.
There's two of you.
There's two of us. Yeah, dude. Team SmashPractice.
So what should I put on the overlay for your Twitters? I guess I could put all.
Just Smash Practice.
Oh, Smash Practice.
Do you want to turn it to the left, actually, a little bit? Because there's the light over there.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Let me mute my stream. And I'm good.
So what is Smash Practice? Why?
What is SmashPractice? I feel like I'm always the one that answers. I want Zhu to be the one that answers.
Okay.
Dude, I don't even know what we are.
But we spend so much time talking about it. How can you not know?
It's cause we're doing honestly so many different things. I don't know if I could summarize it in 5 seconds.
Well, we have like
Kind of like what Toph was talking about.
we have about an hour. So tell us like some of the things like what is the goal? What's the higher goal of Smash Practice?
Well, originally, I guess we wanted to set up a stream where we can kind of help people improve at Smash, and this is kind of geared towards like all player levels, so beginner, intermediate, expert. I mean, we're really just trying to cover like everything, like from like basic strategies, like how to do certain things. We're gonna come out with a lot of different content. We're currently working on something that goes over like the mechanics of Dash, and
It's one of my favorite topics.
so we're gonna go really really deep into that and like applications of that, for example, and we also try to entertain as well. I mean, we play Smash not as super elitist tryhards, but also because it's fun, and that's why I think a lot of people play it. So I think there is a lot of entertainment value and just like fun to be had. So it's kind of all around just like a fun educational stream for now, but also we're content creators.
Yep.
I noticed. Do you guys have a YouTube up that I saw, or is that me being sadly mistaken?
We have a YouTube. Unfortunately, like I think originally when you created a YouTube channel, it had its own like username or something. But now if you create a YouTube channel, it just comes with this like GUID. But if you search Smash Practice just on YouTube, you'll be able to find us.
Okay. So if you guys can type it in the stream, that'd be really cool for them. Or if you guys can copy paste the link.
Yeah.
And so I know that you guys are taking a lot of risk personally to make this happen. So what makes you guys such like firm believers and even willing to say like I'm gonna give up my job to go forward in this?
Ooh. Well, I mean, a few things happened. I feel like Cactuar did it first, so I don't.
Did I? So I mean, I was in my job for a bit longer than Zhu was though, and I mean, I loved my job. I got very comfortable there, but there's just like a certain point that you reach where like comfort isn't the best feeling anymore. Like I didn't really feel like very deeply fulfilled by my job. I felt like it got very easy very quickly, and I just kept doing it because again it was easy and I was comfortable. I was pulling in a nice paycheck. Like it's just at the end of the day, like Smash was always the thing that I was most passionate about, and getting to like play other people and get to talk to them about like their path of improvement and like help make them better players was always the thing that I was crazy about. Like since the beginning, for years and years, I love helping people get better at this game, getting to play it and understanding it, because I really believe the better you are at Smash, oftentimes it just the more fun you'll end up having. Like when you get better at this game, you understand it more and more. You end up. It's just like second nature. You like sit down, you play Smash, and you feel fulfilled. You feel like you see the result of all the hard work that you put into the game. And yeah, that kind of led me to being like, hey, Smash is kind of getting to a point where there are so many people picking up the game, so many people watching the game. I mean, it's a risk right now, but like if I put it off any longer, I feel like I would just look back later in life and regret not having taking that chance to like put all this kind of content out there that I think again will target people and help their improvement at the game, as well as just like us getting to have fun on our own and getting to get you guys to know us a little bit better. So yeah, that's kind of what started it, and then a few weeks later Zhu stole my idea and decided to join me.
it was
Fine.
it was much easier for me to do it after someone else did it, right? Because like if it was just me by myself, I don't know if I ever would have just quit my job and tried to do Smash on my own. Yeah, I'm definitely in complete agreement with Cactuar here. I think that it seems like Smash just has this crazy momentum right now, like as an esport or as whatever you want to call it. Like, and I think that esports in general and just this whole thing will just continue to grow. And I think there's a place for people to make a living out of it. I really do. And I don't know. I think right now I don't think there could have been any better time for me to have like committed to this. Like any earlier might have been more risky, and any later I might have missed my chance. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love Smash. I love my old job too, but like even at my old job, sometimes I'll just be thinking about Smash, and I've just been doing this for so long, and I just love it so much that like, if I have a chance to do this full time, then why not?
I really like this quote that's in the chat right now. It's just, there are so many new players, and they play like shit, so we teach them. It's not really like that. Like me, when I see a new player, I don't see like the level of play that they're at. I try to look at what they're trying to say with their gameplay, or like the things that they're starting to look at, and like I don't want them to just be recreations of us. I don't want them to just see our gameplay and want to copy everything that we do. I want to see what their play style is, what they're most comfortable with, and help them push that to the limit, because that's how they're going to express themselves. It's not, oh, here are all the answers. It's, there are all these different questions. You're going to have to find the answers for yourself.
Like, I think the one thing that stands out as you're saying that is, whenever I ask you, and I'm pretty sure millions of people solicit you for advice, is that you frustratingly never give me an answer. You ask me a question to my question, but you know what? That has helped me learn a lot more than you simply giving me an answer. So, like, what is in your thought process as people solicit you for advice?
Usually, most of the time, I feel like I get the same question as most other players, which is just like, hey man, can you give me like a general idea of like how I can improve? And that's a really difficult question to just answer, because I mean, when you play a lower level player, there are 1,001 like technical errors going on. The way that they respond to every situation, they don't identify every situation as quickly, and as a result end up having like slower responses in general, and often like don't know how their toolkits match up against a higher level players, and don't know how to apply any of it. So it's kind of difficult to just give like a general guide on improvement, aside from like, oh hey, you can work on tech skill, or oh hey, like I kept punishing you for this one specific thing. So for me, I feel like it's a lot better to try and put them on a path where like I'm kickstarting their critical thinking ability. Like if I ask them a question that like legitimately they sit down and they think about it and they find the answer for themselves, it's very likely that they'll have a follow-up question of their own that they can go through that same process with.
I see. Zhu, I have a question for you. So when most people see you, they see the Zhu that got, even the slightly older players, they see the Zhu that got fourth at Genesis, and they were under the notion that you were already like phenomenal, but they don't see your path between when you first started the game and you got to that point of fourth at Genesis. And I remember very vividly that every week you lose to a random new player at the San Jose State bi-weeklies, but then you would destroy them the week after and slowly make this Kill Bill like climb. And so do you want to just like kind of talk about that process of the growing pains of getting good at Melee?
I think I lived in a time where it was much easier. When I started out, like you said, I would definitely just like lose to someone each week, but like I would basically just put all of my thought and effort on beating that one person. Like if there was a new person, I wouldn't really worry about them. Obviously, like if I lost to like Silent Spectre or someone, like he was kind of like on the lower end of my list, but like if I lost to like a newer player, I would just try to figure out how to beat them specifically. and just make sure I would never lose to them again. So like, I would hunt them down for friendlies and just like put all of my effort into that. And like a lot of times I would like beat them really bad the next time, and I feel like that would make a very strong impression, and that they would just like be weaker against me mentally the next time as well. And yeah, like that's basically how I climbed the ladder in NorCal. At some point I just found myself like in grand finals against Silent Spectre, and I basically like never lost to anyone in NorCal other than like the top 3.
So what would your thought process be? Because that's a very high level that you would think about the player, but what was the actual like meat and potatoes of that process? Would you like think about the matchup? Would you look at what was the actual thought process in that?
I mean, yeah, before it was like a mix of matchup and player. Oftentimes, like if there was like a random, I don't know,
KOF.
Like there weren't that many like players back in the day. So like if I lost to like a, like a Sheik player or something like that, I would just approach it like, well, there's some Sheik things that I have to work on, but like it was mostly just beating the player. But back then it was really, really easy because like I just had Falco and I could just like learn a new combo or just have like slightly better tech skill, and like I could just like overwhelm or like bulldoze like a lot of those opponents. It took a really, really long time before that approach no longer worked, where I could just like focus a little bit on a person, like get a little bit better at tech skill or like combos, and like not be able to just like beat somebody.
Right. Cactus, I didn't really know of you. Like, I've heard of you, and you're infamously Mewtwo dad. And I remember seeing like a grand finals where you made a Cactuar caw, like mating sound, as you were getting beat in Marth Dittos against Mewtwo King.
What?
Like, it was like the like as you're trying to recover. Do you remember that match?
Sometimes playing Mewtwo King and Marthetos is frustrating enough to elicit that kind of response.
So I don't really know about your journey, to get to where you're at. I came in with very little knowledge of the East Coast scene, and I just assumed that you're just really good from the get-go.
I mean, that's kind of how it was. No, I started as a scrub just like everybody else. Yeah, I mean, I kind of talk about it a little bit in that video that we did, coolest thing in the world. But the growing process itself is not something that was talked about. So I just played like crazy. I hated not hated. Hated is a strong word. Whenever I lost, I would get like obsessed with figuring out like why I was losing, and like in the beginning, that was again more placed. The emphasis was more on me just not being a good enough player yet. So like I never had a GameCube or anything like that. So my first year, my friend Lewis, he actually still lives in Philly. He let me borrow his system because I was just like, dude, I need to get better at this game. There's this like whole world of advanced techniques out there. Once I had discovered Smash boards, and he let me borrow his GameCube, and just like rather than go out some nights in college, like I would just be like, I have to learn wave dashing. I have to sit here and glide across the stage for hours on end until I can do it consistently. And that's like, there is definitely that grind phase where you need to be really excited about it or it's gonna suck. So yeah, I would just sit there and I would grind out like wave dashes and like simple movement and stuff. And thankfully, one of the reasons I think that I in the early days I was more resistant to like tricky gameplay was because there was a Mario player in my dorm, and I can't remember for the life of me what his gamer tag was, but I think his real name was Myron, and he ended up going off into NASCAR and becoming a NASCAR driver. But he played Mario, and he was like semi-familiar with some of the stuff. He couldn't like wave dash consistently, but he knew how to wave land back. And like at the time, like when you're a low-level player, this was like in 2005 for me, like he would just jump at me, and I originally played Roy and then transitioned to Marth, and he would jump into my forward smash space all the time and just trick me up and wave land back, and I would throw out a forward smash and whiff it. That was like the beginning of it for me. That was like, you can bait people into doing stuff. And then from that point on, like I had so much focus. Like I did my thing on my own where I would sit there and practice tech skill, but when I played other people, I would try to look for like, do they play do they use baits at all? Do they play tricky at all? Do they try and manipulate me at all? And as a result of like focusing on that so much, I feel like like so much of my attention got put onto tricky gameplay and like figuring out that person as I play them that I just got very good at it very quickly. And then, yeah, that was like the early days of Cactus.
You know, that's really interesting because like I think my start like because my answer to that question was basically, well, I just I just got better at text code and I would just beat people. Like I thinking about it now, like I never really thought like about like beating the player in that sense. Even though I would look at habits, I wouldn't think like, oh, like is this person an offensive player or like a defensive player? Does he try to like trick me up? It was just a lot of times it's like, well, if I can identify one option and just like get slightly better at text code or slightly faster, I would just like beat them every time. And that's on like again, like I started in an easier era if you're a tech skill oriented player. And I don't know, I kind of cashed out on that really early, and I think that's kind of why I've been struggling now, because like a lot of the newer players came in and like they couldn't just bulldoze people for free. They actually had to be like very tricky and very like, I don't know, just very strong and neutral, which I think I lack in a little bit.
I think also, like, I hate to talk positively about the Brawl or Smash 4 scene, but
hey, the conversation with Nakat.
Nakat was just on here talking about it, and the big thing that he brings over into the Melee game is his sense of spacing, his sense of, we'll call it mind games, but just the ability to interact with the opponent on like a deeper than, oh, if I throw this move at him and he throws that move out, my move will win. It's not always that easy. Like sometimes you really have to consider timing, and like in timing is where like the really complex interactions happen, in my opinion. It's just, like, even if your move loses to their move, if you have a good sense of timing, you might be able to beat their move coming out, or you might be able to manipulate the space in a way where they think they can land it, they can throw their move out, and then you can be on top of them as soon as you can and still hit them with that move. So yeah, I think that the Brawl players actually have a very good sense of being able to do that, and yeah, the newer players, again, they have more familiarity with Brawl. Like they're probably going to get into it starting out in Brawl or Smash 4 at this point, and I mean, if they see Melee and they pick it up and they play it and they apply that same understanding of the neutral game and the level of interaction, and then just add in wave dashing, I think wave dashing alone makes that so much more complex that it's like impossible to put down Melee once you picked it up.
It feels nice. What was it? I always feel like Melee tech skill is like athleticism in sports. I'm hearing echo, actually. But I always felt like tech skill is like athleticism in sports, where like it'll get you to a certain level, but you play professionally. Athleticism and bulldozing people, unless like you're a freak of nature, won't allow you to beat players. Like they will just outsmart you.
Well, to an extent, we've actually talked about athleticism on our own pretty extensively recently, and for a while I felt that Zhu's athleticism was going down a bit because he wasn't really spending as much time practicing, and it was probably true. Like your timings were becoming a little more sloppy.
He's getting old.
He's getting old. Thankfully, we can do things that help us not be old anymore. But where was I even going with that? So, I actually view being athletic and being skilled as two different things. So recently I've been trying to break this into two separate pieces. Like being athletic really means that you have a good like sense of when your character is able to move between actions, and like you're able to move fast, if you want to call it fast, and just have a good sense of maintaining control over your character. Being skilled, to develop skill in something, in my opinion, is to like create strategies or like a series of sequences out of that ability to move that accomplishes a purpose. So you can have like a highly athletic individual, but if he doesn't know how to fight, he's not going to know how like his like what kind of angles to take to approach the other person, how to attack them, what to do to defend himself. He has no skill in being able to interact with the opponent despite his high level of athleticism. So it's really important to focus on both sides of that. And I don't really know where the trend is right now as far as if people are more focused on tech skill and athleticism or on developing like skillful things to do with their character or in game.
It's like really tough to evaluate because there's just so much like social media noise that I can't even assess like what's really being emphasized among new players. I think it's like all over the place. So for you guys, you guys had like takes of upswing, and then I'm pretty sure you guys had periods where like tournaments weren't going right for you. You were losing to people, and so it gets discouraging. So how do you guys have the right mindset when things aren't going, right for you? Like,
Do you want me to answer?
It's an open question for both you guys.
You first.
I don't know. I think one big thing that I've kind of learned since coming here, or just like changed my perspective, is like if you treat like, I guess, results and getting good at smashes like something that just takes place in the long term. And so I mean, like, yeah, you lose once or twice, that's like that won't necessarily affect you in the long term. And if you treat it as like just like a learning process, like if you lose, then you can take something from it and like learn from it and get better next time, and like focus on improvement rather than like results. I think that will help your like mental health a lot better, because I don't know, then the losses are meaningful. You can lose and again like take something away from it, and that's something that I've kind of shifted towards, because like before, I don't think I really had any like greater purpose really to play Smash or tournaments and such. Like I wasn't actually thinking about just like improving in the long term or whatever. But like once I've thought more about that, and treating tournaments as just like a learning experience, you just kind of separate yourself from the result. And I think like once you get those bad results, you don't treat them, or you don't look at them as like as badly or get as discouraged. So yeah, like I'll lose here and there, and I have footage of it, I can learn from it, and I can just beat the guy next time, and it's all good.
I would just like to add that like I felt like like when I look at because like I have like a fierce like admiration for like your improvement, because like I'm into high school with you, and then out of the blue like you went from this like random guy that I can scrap my way to win once in a while to this guy that got really good, and I felt like you were doing really well for yourself, but you're just like focusing on like just improving as opposed to results. So, and I think that's something I'm seeing return for you now.
Honestly, it's interesting, because like that great improvement period, I do not attribute that to having a good mentality or anything. Like kind of what I just said, I definitely did not have
okay.
At all.
So
I kind of again like I just improved that tech skill. That's it. That whole time I was just focusing on improving my athleticism actually. Whereas I don't think I was a truly skillful player. Maybe like intuitively, or maybe I understood some things, but I never thought of Smash in terms of like, I don't know, like fighting or something. For me, it was just like, what can I do to beat my opponent? And like, it's just very raw terms like that, unfortunately. So
I see.
Sorry to say, yeah.
Okay. And in Cactus, you, I believe, have a thing or two.
I went through long periods of time where like I would play the game off and on, and when I would come back, I feel like I would lose to people that I was like, oh, I never would have lost this guy when I was like in shape, and that was like really discouraging. And looking back, like I wish I could go back and coach myself, because I feel like I would come out with like such a healthier mindset, because sometimes that would be like really self-destructive, and I would go home and like beat myself up over it, not physically, but I would just be upset for that week. Like I would be in a clearly bad mood, and then again like that whole like obsessive like I don't want to lose to this guy, I'm gonna sit there and study and grind it out sense would kick in, and like I would sit there and I like would go through a long period of time where I would sit there and play the game specifically because I was like, I lost to this guy, I'm just gonna beat up on that character, I'm gonna beat up on his CPU character the entire time. I feel like that was kind of unhealthy. Like now if I were to go into that same situation, I don't have that sense that like, oh, what are people gonna think if I lose to this player, or who's gonna talk about this set if I do win, or if it's like a close set with like a really good player. Like I still get nervous, but I don't have a whole bunch of like thoughts that are clouding my head over it. So I feel like it gives me the ability to like actually sit there and focus and play. And that's something that I've worked on specifically on my own. I don't even know where I'm going with that. It's been a weird journey, because like my previous losses I felt mostly came from me not playing the game and being distracted in real life by other things. And then when I feel like I've made the most improvements, because I actually sit down and I'm focused, for whatever reason for that focus is, I'm focused on improving for a specific goal. Like painted myself a target, and I want to accomplish that target.
Okay. I'm going to give a quick shout out actually. Mike Sala, thank you for the $10 donation, and Vicky Quinto, thank you for a $20 donation.
Cool.
Yeah, shouts to you guys.
Thanks, so we could do happy feet.
Happy feet. So like you mentioned briefly the noise inside your head, and you know, in a more macro level sense, like going to leaving a tournament and feeling, oh dang, I wish I did better. But in the confines of an individual match where, you know, you're playing a person that like you routinely beat, but they're like roughly at your level, things start not going quite right, they get a punish, you mess up something tech related, they take a stock, like what do you do in that situation when the noise starts coming into your head?
Back then, I would start thinking about it immediately, like, oh my god, I'm about to lose to whoever. But now it's more, I'm just focused on the game. Like, even though they have taken that stock, like that's not any indicator of what the outcome of the match is. That's just kind of like the nature of the game. The game has a flow to it. Sometimes the other person takes the stock first, sometimes you do. And what's much more important is consistency over time and staying focused in every moment that you are playing that game on playing the game. Like the focus has to be on playing. The focus has to be on like the next thing that you want to happen. You really need to be focused on what's going on right now. What strategy are they using? What move are they putting out? How am I moving on the stage? Where do I want to go? And sometimes I like break that down a little too far. Sometimes I get like so in the zone that I'm thinking like one move at a time, even though I am thinking like ahead to what my strategy is. Sometimes when I'm practicing in particular, it's just like to develop like an anti-autopilot. I feel that a lot of people sit down and they practice their tech skill and just go crazy all over the stage. Like, to help develop my focus while practicing for that tournament environment, I'll sit there and I'll think about it one move at a time. Like, I'll think about the very next input or the very next decision particularly that I want to make, and that can be done at like a very micro level, or it can be done on a macro level. Hey, like I want to do like this series of neutral airs while retreating and like blocking off this space, or it can be like, hey, I'm just trying to do like a short hop, and then like as I'm leaving jump squat, I want to hold back in the control stick so that the analog causes it to jump backwards, and then I want to hold forward from that jump backwards so I don't continue to give up space. And then I want to fastball and land, and then I want to dash away. So I did like an empty fall into a dash away. Like, you can break it down however, at whatever level that you want to. So doing that in practice really helps me keep those thoughts away during tournament. Because if you don't practice that in practice, when you sit down and you practice by yourself, you just sit there and you autopilot, it's very likely that you're going to autopilot in tournament. But when you're autopiloting, your brain has so much room to think about bad things. So it's important to practice the way that you want to play in tournament. And that I think that's like the message that I want to send with that. You really need to focus on how you can develop your ability to stay focused.
So being present, basically.
Yeah.
And how do you, so, you know, you brought up a lot of lofty concepts, and I think, you know, as players that are more, you know, seasoned, this is like natural to us, but, you know, a new player is going to be like, well, like, how do I be present? Like, what should I be looking for? And that's like something that a lot of new players like don't understand, because like when we watch a video, we'll be like, oh my gosh, like that was like a really good decision, but the new player's going to be like, oh, like that was a really cool combo. And so like, how do they, like, what type of starting points would you give a person that doesn't know what to like even look for?
I mean, I really think that development of it's like intuition. There are a bunch of books out there on this now. I've actually just read through like a series of these, but like Inner Game of Tennis is really popular, obviously, and Inner Game of Tennis breaks down your like control systems into an automatic control system where like your mind will just be focused on something and automatically execute something as a result of it. Again, we'll just call it automatic. And then there's the second one, which is like the manual control. It's where you can like step in and be present and like focused on the moment and like make decisions for yourself. There's a whole bunch of like different books out there that talk about it. I think, so we talked about reading Blink a little bit. Blink talks more about the effect it has when you are an expert in something, the effect it has on your automatic system. So like your intuition is basically driven off of all of the knowledge that you have about a thing. You really, if you want to have that same intuitive knowledge and be able to just look at a match and be like, oh, I understand his decision making. I mean, really, one of the only paths to doing that is sitting down and really studying it and breaking it down into a more granular level and becoming very familiar with it. Like spending as much time as you can, like looking at these situations, trying to think about like what goes into that situation, even sitting down and like recreating situations that happen in games so that you have more of like a physical feel that gets paired along with the mental viewpoint that you take just watching the video. All of that is going to help you identify those kinds of situations faster and also kind of develop that intuitive response to the situations that are going to help you during the middle of the game.
And just playing all of those, or just as many players, and putting yourself in those actual situations as possible, right?
Yeah, but you have to be actually paying attention to those things. Like if you're not looking for any of this, it's not gonna be impossible to do it, but it's gonna take you much longer to learn. Like it's really important to sit down and look and be curious about what happens in every moment, because to the uninitiated player, like Fox drills somebody and that person like SDIs every hit. The uninitiated player just sits there and thinks like, oh wow, that didn't work out very well. Like he
missed my dare.
He just got out of there, or he missed his dare. You have to be curious enough to be like, did he do something right there to get out of the down air? And that's how you like discover SDI. Like we talk about the competency model. You don't know what you don't know. You have to actually like go on a path of discovery just to figure out what you don't know, and then you can start studying. Like figuring out all the stuff you don't know is like the hardest step especially for like advanced players, because we feel like we have so much of it already figured out. But there are so many times where I'm watching a match, or we're just sitting down watching a match, where we're like, what just happened? And we have to look into it.
Every Mango match ever.
Every Mango match ever, yeah.
Dude, Mango is like, that's like the thing that like bugs me. Like people say like go on this notion Mango's a natural and like he doesn't have fundamentals, but when I watch his punishes and his decision making, those come from good fundamentals and being able to manipulate it. But that's aside. How do you guys decide what fruit you guys are gonna eat?
I don't know if we can make that kind of information. No. I mean, these past few times, the first time.
Wait. Okay. Well, we let the viewers determine for a nice little fee. No, I don't know.
I mean, if they
we should really like monetize that.
We could just like pick a random sub and be like, hey, what fruit should we eat, and go out of our way to get that fruit.
How much would I have to pay for durian?
Dude, we've gotten so many requests for durian.
I don't know if I'm ready to like just put a durian in my apartment. I live in a building with other people, and that is a very pungent fruit. I hear it's delicious though. So
We'll eat someone in the chat said eat a mango. I think we'll do that if Mango gets the 3P.
Okay. That's his reward. So, Cactuar, what do you think about you winning the majority of friendlies and Scar winning sometimes?
What? So Scar and I were practice partners for a long time, and I mean, Zhu can kind of tell you about this effect, but like I go like way above and beyond when I learn another player in friendlies, and I mean, you can think about that effect when I sit down with somebody in friendlies at like a tournament or something, and like it goes from the matches are pretty close, and then like I start figuring them out, and it becomes much more one-sided. Think about how that feels for like a long-term practice partner of mine, like somebody who I watched grow from not even being able to wave dash to being the player that they are. Like I never really thought about like what kind of effect that must have had on Scar back then, but I could imagine it would be pretty difficult to deal with. And he once came here, I think within the last few years, he just visited me here, and we sat down, we were playing, and he's like, he just stops in the middle of it, and he looks at me and says, Cactuar, I know now that I never could have beaten you back then. I just cracked up about it. But that was back when I was a Marth player. I mean, Scar got to a point actually while he was in Philly that I feel that consistently he could have performed better at nationals than I would have.
Damn. Like, I put that as a joke because there's that YouTube series where, like, Scar posted, like, the 6 matches where he won. Like, out of, like, every match where you... Like, out of, like, hundreds of matches that you won. So it's just a little jab.
He did used to do that. You know, I don't know if I should tell this story on stream, but there was one time where we sat down to record matches, and the very first match that we recorded, it was my Marth and his Falcon on Yoshi's story, and I take his first 3 stock without getting hit, and he and his friend, our friend Scott, got him. He used to play Fox also. He was there too. He was just watching, and Scar comes down, and he's just like frantic to get a hit in, and I just grab him by the edge and throw him off and get like a tippered forward smash, and he just dies like immediately at like 15 something %. JV 5 stock on Scar. I asked him for the video over a course of a few weeks, and eventually he just admits it. He just like has this look of shame in his face, and he's like, it never existed. He fucker deleted it.
It's okay. We had something similar with the NorCal versus SoCal crew battle.
Wait, what happened?
Oh
with that?
yeah,
Champ combo. It was like when like Ken, King, Isaiah were all like really strong players. I think Ken took like 10 stocks and like dominated NorCal, and Bobak I think had the video and it never got uploaded. I don't know who has it to this day or if it even exists. So you guys had interesting experiences. Zhu, you had Mango as a semi-regular practice partner. Cactuar, you had Muta King. What was that like? Either of you can answer first.
I was just talking for a while. I'm gonna take a little break.
Mine's really short though. I never really had. I mean, okay, so I kind of wish I took like more of an advantage, or you know whatever, from living so close to Mango. Like I never actually like really sat down with him and like played him for a long time. I really just played him a lot in tournament. But yeah, I mean like a lot of people call it the Mango osmosis, where just like being around him, playing with him every now and then, like watching him play other people will kind of just like make you better. And that's really, really true, because like I was especially lucky because Mango, when I was in SoCal, he was picking at Falco. So he gave me a ton of ideas. He gave me like a lot of my spacing things, and just like the way I see Falco and like just see the game is because like I just got to like be on the receiving end of the Mango osmosis, and that was great. But yeah, I think also kind of like how Cactuar was saying, like, you know, his effect on Scar, like just being long-term like practice partners or whatever, like playing Mango in grand finals and like winners finals a lot, like I don't know, it really does something to you. Like it'll just like make me really question a lot of things I'm doing like 4 steps in advance. So like I don't know. Before I even like decide to make a move, I'm like, fuck, is he like going to get me for this? And like that carries on sometimes. But like, I don't know. Going off of playing Mango to going off of playing someone else is like, man, it's just you forget how easy the game can be as well. So it's like good and bad. Like he definitely taught me a lot, but I think he shot my confidence down a little bit at times. But he also just made me more prepared against like a lot of people. And yeah, again, thank God like he was learning Falco around that time. He definitely taught me so many things.
It's crazy because like you know like when like you have like a rat and there's like electrical shocking buzzers everywhere, and like if they move a little bit incorrectly, it's like a buzz. Like that's how I feel like when I play Mango. Quick shout outs, Brian Buckley, thank you for your donation of $4.44. Really appreciate it. So Cactuar, so what was it like, you know, being with me? Were you around Muta King the whole time, or were you there when he like already made his spike? Or
I mean, he was already rising to the top when I ran into him, but he played Fox at the time, and like a few months into our interactions, he switched to Marth specifically for the Marth Ditto because he felt like frustrated playing Marth against Ken in particular. Like Muta King straight up picked up Marth for Ken to Marth Ditto. So he would come over and we would just Marth Ditto for like hours and hours and hours. And the unfortunate thing about that was that Muta King even back then, he had already spent like 6,000 hours playing the game and like working on his ability, like his athleticism. But he also worked on his athleticism specifically into skillful things. Like he even back then he was very good at like pretty consistently doing these long combos that like other people just had no idea how to do. So playing against him would get pretty frustrating on my end because I would just be stuck in 0 to deaths a lot of the time and not really have a good sense of how I could DI out of those or how I could manipulate my positioning out of his hits to make it more difficult for him. So that was the thing that I got good at first, probably, because I just spent so much time getting comboed. I had to do something. It had a weird influence on the way that I played neutral. So, I mean, I had that friend who was good at being like tricky. Mewtwo King was never tricky. Mewtwo King would just only put out things that would lead into big punishes. So I couldn't always, like, I had nowhere near that level of punish game. So the things that I would focus on were just, how can I hit him in a way that I can get the hell away from him immediately? Because if I linger near him, it's likely that like out of a scramble situation, he's gonna get a grab in and kill me. So like the way that I learned to play neutral back then was just like really hit and run. Like I could just, I felt that if I just outplayed Mewtwo King by like 40 times, I would just win. So as long as I can hit him like 10 times for every one time that he hits me, the matches will go roughly even.
So it's like fighting a unfair Nintendo boss.
Yeah, exactly. Like an unfair Nintendo boss that will just two-shot you while you have to land like 400 buster shots on him just to take him out. And like I didn't mind it back then because back then I was young and dumb and thought that it was possible. Like I was like, if I just believe hard enough in this style of play, I will never have to learn how to combo because I'll just constantly outplay everyone. I mean, it worked out to an extent, but over the years, people got much better at punishing, and people got much better at playing neutral. So I had to balance it out a little bit. But there's an effect like that for, I think, for every like set of practice partners out there. Your practice partner does have a big influence on the way you play the game, and being able to identify it early kind of gives you more of an influence on what that's gonna turn out to be. But I think it's really cool to look at duos of players who have played against a lot over the years and see what kind of influences they have had on one another.
We got one last question for you guys. So, actually, this kind of goes along. I mean, it's kind of what we've been talking about. How do you adapt to play styles and techniques? So, like, you know, Cactuar, like you mentioned, just a continuation. You have a particular style that, you know, works against Mewtwo King, and then you go to the West Coast or Florida, and the style's different. And so, like, what are you looking for when you have, like, no read? It's like going to a new poker game with, like, no reads on anybody. So, like, what's your thought process?
Again, I'm not too focused on like my result. I really am very curious about going to different regions and experiencing their play. So, summer of 2007. To tell an old story, I got to travel around the country actually, and I went to FC, I went to Genesis, I went to Super Champ Combo, I went to a few other tournaments. Anyway, it was a fun summer, but I feel like I came back from that summer, and over the course of that summer, I probably made like the biggest leap in overall skill, just because I did get to experience so many other players. I was so excited about playing so many different people and like looking at the things that they do and figuring it out, getting an understanding from their perspective, and then like trying to see how I could either counter it or like do it myself, or it's just so much. Like at FC, I didn't sleep for 3 days. I didn't sleep the entire time at FC, and I did terribly in the tournament. But once I did sleep after that, like I just played friendlies for like almost 3 days straight. I was crazy about it, and I was so excited about it and learning all that stuff. I didn't learn any of it. I thought that I was just like getting progressively worse over those 3 days, and like everybody was figuring me out. But once I actually got the time to like sleep and stop and think about all these stuff that happened, I got so much better. So each of the different regions, they do have a different play style, like a different like flavor to them, and usually that's a result. You can look at the top players from that region and see that they have obviously like the biggest effect on that region's play style typically. But I mean, in Florida's case, I don't know that that's true because they have like Hungrybox, and then they had like the Spacey Army back then. But now it's more like Falcons and Samus. I don't know what happened down in Florida. These guys are a little nuts. But yeah, I mean, I think that given the rise of like YouTube videos and all of that, it's much more unlikely that I would go to a tournament now and experience that same level of like not knowing what I'm seeing. I don't think that ever happens now. I think it's really important to study videos. Like, we haven't done the episode on shadowboxing yet. I think shadowboxing is like the way to go. I think when you are trapped in a region where the player skill is low or like the player density is low,
PP.
You can watch videos. You can watch videos and grab like a mental image of what the opponent did in this situation, or just like a series of things that led into a hit that led into a punishment. Like, don't just look at a series of things that led into a random hit. It has to be something that like, oh, this very clearly worked out in his favor and he converted from this into this other stuff. Think about all that and just kind of like replay it in your head when you sit down and play, and think about like, oh, at what points could I interact with this? Like, if I were to do this, would he change what he had done during that scenario? Like, is there a way for me to very specifically react to this point where he makes this decision, and then could I come back and punish that? Would I have to make sure that I like don't have to, like, I don't run too far away? Because a lot of times, like, when people don't know what they're seeing, they avoid it by this huge range where it's impossible for them to punish the opening that was created. So being familiar with that stuff, it's going to let you play a lot closer to the opponent as well. I don't know.
Any closing thoughts, Sue?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just kind of agree with all of that. I kind of just, I was on a podcast done with King Funk and Mr. Love. We had a discussion on that topic exactly, where like, they were kind of asking me about like the different flavors of like each region in Europe, and like for me, like right now, like I didn't really have any idea. Well, partly because like I didn't really know where a lot of the players were even from, but also because like, yeah, nowadays there's like YouTube videos and like, you know, there's all this like intermingling between players that like I don't think the styles are as defined as they were in the past. Like whichever tournament you went to, right? Like you would play Florida and, you know, they might have a certain style because of Hungrybox and the Falco Army. I don't think that's...
Back then it was more defined by Shizwiz than Hungrybox, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true, huh? Because the Shiz brought about like...
Well, Shiz keeps beating, and their other brother... I can't believe I can't remember his name. He played Mario. SmashPractice. Yeah. So they I think they had a bigger role in defining like early days Florida.
Yeah, but like, I was actually kind of asked this recently, and when I went to Europe, like, I don't know, I didn't really feel like they had a particular style versus like USA. And then the week after I went to Denver, and I kind of felt the same thing. It was just really, every other player had their own kind of like decision trees or whatever, but I don't feel like like a region can really be defined by a certain play style anymore. It's just, I don't know. I mean, because like right now, you can't really be successful with just one kind of play style. You kind of have to have all these different play styles and different like decision trees or just different styles to do well and be consistent. Like, I don't know. It's really hard. And again, with the information spread, it's very easy to kind of take a look at all the available things and like put them in your tool set.
I think our arsenals at this point are like very diverse. So when I sit down and like think about the different things that I can do with Fox, like I have a whole series of things that like fall under like aggressive or defensive or like really passive, and like there are subcategories underneath that where like I can be playing overall like in this aggressive way, like I can be pushing towards my opponent, but I can be doing it in a defensive way. Like with Sheik in particular, even if like my idea of aggressive Sheik isn't her like throwing out moves and doing like crazy movement to get her to like to be able to put herself on top of people. It's slowly approaching the opponent with a very strong defensive position. So like that's an aggressive defense or a defensive aggression. I don't even know how to describe it. Like there's just so many ways that you can use the toolkits of the characters, and it is important to like identify how you do use those things, but just because you have a large toolkit of like defensive moves and a smaller one of aggressive ones, like that doesn't have to define you as being a more defensive player. Like you could in the moment, just because you feel that the advantage would be more in your favor, play all aggressive, only having like 3 offensive options if you wanted to. I don't think it's like smart to over-identify with being like an aggressive, defensive, campy, whatever player.
Yeah, so I guess like the original question was, how do we deal with these different styles? I don't feel like any particular style is foreign. Usually it's just a single player, and so I'll kind of just focus on that single player. I think I don't know if this is necessarily a good question for me and Cactus, because I think like whenever we go to say a big tournament and struggle with a particular person, it's really just the individual a lot of the times, right?
Yeah.
It's not really a region. So
The play style isn't what gives us trouble. It's the player's skill.
yeah. I think that's more accurate. And if it's a matter of that, then it's just keeping a tab on that particular player, really being curious about what it is that gives you trouble, and then when you play or maybe afterwards, just try to think about how to beat that person. Like I spent a lot of my time just playing Smash in my head, replaying those situations where I would lose and try to figure out those things that were really frustrating me, and just theory craft in my head. And then once I have an idea of like, oh, okay, maybe this style or maybe like this sequence of moves would be good, I'll test it out on precisely that person. I think if you have trouble with someone, don't avoid them. Find them. Like think about them, come up with ideas, and really experiment on them. Like just me in particular. Maybe this isn't like a region struggle, but I've always struggled with ice climbers, and for a very long time I just avoided playing them because I just hated it so much. But that only got me so far. I would lose to ice climbers in pools and stuff, and at some point, if you want to be the best, you have to like face these frustrations head on. So what you said earlier was just being very curious about how to overcome certain things, even if it frustrates you. I think that's the most important thing, whether it's like a regional style or if it's just like a single player.
Right. Okay. Well, we're about at that time, and I really appreciate the insight, and I think the crowd and the Twitch chat have been loving you guys. Now, how do they reach out to you guys in the future?
We have a Twitter. We are SmashPractice, but we have our individual Twitters too. I am at Cactus Smash on Twitter, and Zhu is _Zhu. And then we also have our Twitch channel.
SmashPractice.
Okay.
I think you guys will be able to find us. It shouldn't be very hard. So.
And if you want to be part of an improvement-oriented community, we also have our Facebook group. It is SmashPractice on Facebook. You should not have any difficulty finding it by using the search function. And yeah.
So thank you very much. You guys are, very awesome. I love the work you guys put in, and I really believe in your efforts. So yeah, thank you very much, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Before we go, Fly just said, if people want to avoid ice climbers and stay free against them, they can be my guest. Fly, I never thought of you as that kind of a person. I'm so disappointed in you, Fly, right now.
Ouch, shots.
Damn it, Fly. Damn it. You're part of my problem. Do you not know that you caused this to me? Fly, Diz Kid Boogie, you too. I hate all of you guys.
You're getting blown up, buddy.
Alrighty.
No, I love you guys. You guys definitely made me improve in a lot of ways. So.
All right, guys. Thank you for having us on, Tafo. It was fun.
All right.
For everybody on the
guys.
stream, don't forget to practice Smash.
Yes.